Hi, everyone. We're running a few minutes late. I'm waiting on the third judge. I just sent her an email real quick. Hopefully she hops on. Until then, it might just be a couple minutes. Oh, she said, yes, I'm trying to get on, so it shouldn't be too long. Alrighty, so it looks like we have everyone here that is needed. I'd first like to address the proposed resolution on the voting window. I believe that that has come to an answer that every party has agreed to that being okay. As far as that goes, I know that Mr. Cudney was supposed to be a witness on part of that portion of the claims. Is there any other part that you are testifying to, just so that we are aware to make sure we put in time for witness questioning?
Give me one moment. I'm having speaker issues. Could you repeat that, please?
So we came to the proposed resolution.
Hold on. Zoom isn't using my headphones, so I have to fix that.
Okay.
It's been a while since I had to be on Zoom.
No worries.
Okay, how's this?
Can you hear us now?
Can you test the audio, please?
Are you able to hear us? Testing? Anything?
This is just for whatever reason not working. I might have to join in on my phone if it keeps not working.
Okay. So I might just send that in the chat because.
I hear you now suddenly.
Okay, perfect.
My apologies.
No worries. So we had a proposed resolution of extending the voter window by 24 hours, which was proposed by the Student Senate Rights and Affairs Chair. It was then accepted by New Page KU, and today was accepted by the Elections Commission. So we're going to assume that this part of the claims has been resolved, and we aren't sure whether or not we do need your testimony. If you feel that there is another part of this claim that you are going to be speaking on, just let us know so that we can account for that and make sure that you get your 3 minutes of questioning by both sides.
Yes, I believe. I believe I'm also supposed to testify about the Student Rights Council's reasoning for the amendments, since most of these are new amendments passed last December in my council.
Okay, perfect. I will account for that and put you in after the two constructives. Okay, so to briefly overview how this trial is going to go, each side gets a 10-minute constructive where you get to explain everything about your claims, your counterclaims, responses, etc. The student court will be able to ask questions after you've finished your speech. That goes in the order of appellant first, respondent second. Knowing now that we have a witness, there's 3 minutes of questioning by each side, appellant first, respondent second. And then following this witness testimony, there are 2 rebuttals, appellant first, respondent second. I will be keeping time, and you should be able to hear my phone go off if you do reach the maximum amount of time. And other than that, if there's any questions, please let me know now, or we can hop right into this.
Quick question. Is there time allocated for testimony prior to the questioning of the witness? Or is it basically like a direct examination and a cross-examination?
It's basically a direct examination and a cross-examination because they're answering specific questions as to how they were involved, not really telling a story on their behalf. So if the appellant talks about something and specifically references Mr. Cudney about they made these decisions and they can later answer why, then he could answer that in his cross-examination.
Okay, sounds good. And how long is the rebuttal period?
The rebuttal periods are 5 minutes each.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so the first person up is New Page KU. You can have a combination of multiple speakers at any time within these 10 minutes. If you hear the timer go off, that is the end of your time. Just use the best of it, and there will be questions afterwards. Alrighty, is somebody ready to speak on behalf of New Page KU?
Hello, this is Abdullah. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, so first of all, the Elections Commission has denied my coalition, New Page KU, the opportunity to run on the ballot, even though the coalition complied with the Student Senate rules and regulations, coalition registration criteria. Instead, the Elections Commission determined that the coalition should run as a write-in. Moreover, the Elections Commission is currently in consideration of imposing limitations on my coalition. The Elections Commission has neglected duties to inform students of election dates and deadline extensions. Additionally, the Elections Commission changed the date of the election to match the 2019 Student Rules and Regulations elections date, violating the current Student Rules and Regulations, Student Senate Rules and Regulations, which was solved by the Constitutional Court just a few minutes ago. The Elections Commission should comply with the Student Senate Rules and Regulations by immediately registering New Page KU on the ballot. Denying me an equal opportunity to run for student body vice president, limitations on student opportunities to run elections, and limitations on my coalition's ability to compete in the elections. It's clear that the Elections Commission's decisions negatively impact my opportunity to run for office by making it more difficult for students to vote for New Page KU as opposed to other coalitions. Students will have to write in the name of the coalition instead of selecting a pre-registered option on Rock Chalk Central. As it stands now, only one coalition will appear on the ballot. Students who were not notified of New Page KU's campaign will vote for Ad Astra by default or will not vote at all. The Student Senate Rules and Regulations do not specify any limitations on writing coalitions. However, the Elections Commission is currently in consideration of imposing limitations on my coalition. There is not a single phrase in the Student Senate Rules and Regulations alluding to the existence of anything such as a write-in coalition. Duty of the Elections Commission. It's clearly established that the duties of the Elections Commission are mainly to advertise for the elections. See Exhibit number 3. The Elections Commission has not only neglected its duties, but also overstepped beyond those duties by changing election dates, which violates the Student Senate Rules and Regulations. Failure to announce the election dates. The Elections Commission has neglected its duties by not releasing a public election schedule in advance, which is a part of the special obligations as stated in the Student Senate Rules and Regulations, see Exhibit number 3. While the Elections Commission is required under the Student Senate Constitution to release election schedule at the beginning of the semester, quote unquote, it only announced the date of the election on Wednesday. Up until that day, the complaint was filed, the Elections Commission had only announced the date of the election on the Microsoft Teams, see Exhibit number 2. I was not notified of the date of the election as a candidate. Students and candidates who are not a part of the Microsoft Teams have no means of learning about the date of the election. This information should have been publicized through email and on the elections section of the Student Senate website, which has not been updated since January 24th, 2022. This again demonstrates the repeated negligence of the Elections Commission. The Student Elections Commission shall annually prepare a schedule showing all specific deadlines, events established under this code. The calendar shall be available on the Student Senate website at the beginning of the semester, according to the Student Senate Rules and Regulations. See Exhibit number 3 again. There is no record of an election schedule on the Microsoft Teams or the Student Senate website. The apparent conflict of interest between the chair and one of the candidates. The current Elections Commission Chair, Addison Henson, and the student body president candidate, Sadie Williams, are in a conflict of interests. It is well known that the two individuals are friends. They both work at KU Pan-Hellenic Association, according to KU Pan-Hellenic Association's website and Sadie Williams' LinkedIn profile. Additionally, Addison Henson attended Ad Astra's launching event on February 10th, which I covered as a University League Kansas reporter at the time. See Exhibit number 1. The conflict of interest has impacted the Elections Commission's actions or inactions in the following areas: publicizing information about filing for candidacy in the elections unconstitutionally changing the date of the election, the Elections Commission's decision that New Page shall run as a writing coalition, which again limits students' abilities to vote for a New Page KU as opposed to other coalitions. With the pretext that New Page KU is a writing coalition, the Elections Commission unconstitutionally considered and imposed limitations on New Page KU, consequently denying New Page KU an equal opportunity to run elections. Student coalition regulations and the Student Senate rules and regulations. The Student Coalition must send a list of all affiliated candidates to the Student Elections Commission by 5 p.m. on the Monday before the election week. Registered candidates that consent to being placed on the Student Coalition affiliation list shall have the Student Coalition placed next to their name on the official election ballot. The Constitution offers an opportunity for registered candidates that consent to join a coalition to do so. In addition to that, to encourage students to form coalitions and work together, student coalitions are given a special deadline. There is no phrase in the Constitution indicating that candidacy registration is a prerequisite to forming coalitions. In fact, you can see that the two sentences in the Constitution are separate. For this part, I call an expert witness, Chair of Student Rights and Affairs Counsel Wesley Kudney, to explain the reasoning behind that clause in the Constitution. Should we do that now, or should I continue to read my brief?
You can continue with your brief. The witness will take place after the constructives and questioning by the courts.
New Page KU was registered as a coalition before the coalition deadline. Again, before the coalition deadline, in accordance with the Student Senate rules and regulations. Therefore, New Page KU should appear on the ballot, and students should vote for presidential or vice presidential candidates through the coalition. The proposed remedy, I would like to propose adding New Page KU to the ballot as a remedy. Requests do not constitute a burden on the Elections Commission. New Page KU's only request is to be listed on the ballot. Taking into consideration the Constitutional Court's statement regarding adding New Page KU on the ballot, see Exhibit number 4, this action does not constitute a burden on either the Elections Commission or the individual responsible for adding coalitions to the ballot, as this individual will have a full calendar day to do so. The only consequence of ruling in our favor is that the Student Senate election goes from an uncontested race to a fair competition. However, this means that the best friend of the chair has to run with competition. This conflict of interests may have influenced her decision, which is why we request that you rule in our favor and allow the students to decide who will be president next year and not the commission. Thank you.
Alrighty, as per the Constitution, it is now open to questioning by the court judges. I'm going to give Bryn and Nikki the first opportunity to ask any questions, just so I don't hog up their time.
I don't have any questions as of right now.
Same with me.
Alrighty, so my first question is underneath denying equal opportunity, that portion of the claim. I see that there were 3 individuals wanting to affiliate with New Page Coalition, and I wanted to ask, were any of these 3 individuals registered candidates prior to the affiliation deadline?
I believe that our Alejandro Rangel Lopez was registered before the deadline.
And was that as a senator?
Yeah, I believe as a senator. I can pull up the exact position if you would like me to.
That's okay. I think I saw it as a junior or senior senator, so that shouldn't be an issue. Were any of these 3 individuals that are wanting to affiliate with this coalition unable to access the Student Senate Constitution at any point during the spring semester?
Yes, I believe that Alejandro could not find the Student Senate Constitution, but that would be a question that I would direct to the person himself. But I have seen that he indicated that he was not able to access that Constitution.
Okay, and I don't want to speculate on Alejandro's answers, so I'm just going to move on to my next questions. So I know that in the SBVP file that you guys submitted before the hearing, there was a screenshot of the Student Senate elections page that said the last update was January 24th, 2022. I saw that there was a PowerPoint attached to that. Was anybody unable to access this PowerPoint that was attached to that screenshot? Are we frozen at all or just waiting?
I can access the PowerPoint. I know that for sure.
Okay. For new page KU, was anybody unable to access that PowerPoint that was attached to the Student Senate elections page?
I think the only person who's from New Page KU right now, other than me, is Faith. And I think-
Hello, I am unable to be by a computer where I could access it right now, so I'm unable to give that answer.
Okay, I was just referring to throughout the semester, was this PowerPoint available to new page KU? It's okay if you don't have an answer, we can just move on to the next question. It's no big deal.
Can you specify
So-
which PowerPoint?
So in the email that you guys submitted with Elections Commission's failure, SBVP emails, and then there was a third document attached as well. There was a screenshot of the Student Senate elections page that contained the date where it said last updated January 22nd or January 24th, 2022. And right above that, it said, go here for information in the Student Senate elections PowerPoint, and it said click here. And it would pull up that PowerPoint for you. I just wanted to clarify whether you guys had access to that PowerPoint throughout the spring semester.
I'm not sure which PowerPoint that is.
Let me pull it up and then I can share my screen because I see that our tech people just said that that is an option. Okay, are you guys able to see my screen? Okay, perfect. So I received a screenshot of this portion right here from new page KU prior to the hearing. And it was clearly identifying update from 1/24/2022. And right here, there's KU Student Senate Spring Elections Guide, and it says click here. Were anybody unable to access this PowerPoint?
I personally think that I have been able to access it.
I have also been able to access it.
Okay, perfect. And then, so moving on to the portion of failure to announce the election date. I'm just kind of curious, what harms did not formally announcing the date of the election cause?
So I guess that this is important to any coalition to form their plan to campaign and to know, how to schedule those plans. And by not having an election schedule, that makes it much more difficult to coordinate those things. I believe that also initially we had concerns about when and where we can campaign and how. And if you see the Student Senate website again, the same page that I saw the screenshot, that I sent the screenshot, there's like an FAQ and all the information there is outdated. And initially having an election schedule that specifies to what extent we can campaign, that would have been very helpful. But then we discovered that those rules have changed, except that nobody has uploaded the actual constitution for the Student Senate. So mainly it was because we wanted to know like how we can schedule our campaigning plan.
Okay, perfect. And then moving on to underneath apparent conflict of interest between the chair and one of the candidates. At any point throughout the spring semester, did any of the three aforementioned individuals who are wanting to affiliate with New Page KU either reach out to the Elections Commission with questions as to deadlines or just additional information in general?
I think Faith has reached out, if I'm not mistaken, but I guess that Faith should answer that. because
I have reached out personally, but I am not going to register as a senator.
Okay, and did you receive a response, or did she help you with the information that you were seeking?
So initially when I reached out, I did not get a response back, but I had heard from the other candidate that there was knowledge of my email. I'd accidentally sent it to I sent it to a personal email. And I'd heard that there was conversations between the other candidates and the judge regarding what was in the email and the material. And so I had not received a response, but I know that it was discussed.
Okay. Well, I think that is the extent of my questions. So we can, yeah, if you want to add something.
yes. So the reason Faith reached out to the personal email is because nobody actually has knowledge of what the Election Commission's email is. When we did send an Elections Commission email, it was not received, and we got a response from Outlook saying that this email address does not exist, and it's because the Elections Commission email was not typed correctly into the website. So like it's the only way to communicate with the Elections Commission in our perception at that point was to communicate with Addison Henson.
Okay, and you guys didn't attempt to reach out to anybody else on the Senate in the hopes of being put in communications with the Elections Commission?
I would like to also add that there is no list of members. No, there's no publicized list of members for the Elections Commission. It's only known that Addison Henson is the person who is in charge of the Elections Commission. And I believe that there is some indication of that in the brief that Addison Henson submitted, that she was taking the initiative on leading the Elections Commission while other people were not as experienced. So we only knew of Addison Henson.
Okay,
I would also like to add that I did not specifically reach out to another folks, but I had heard from the current vice president that this information was being shared. So you can say that I guess that I reached out, but it was in a more informal way.
okay, perfect. So I think that is the extent of my questions on the appellant's constructive, and if the respondent is ready, I can begin your clock whenever you're ready.
I'm just gonna pull up my timer and then I'll begin. Okay. So my response is basically going to be in order of the brief, per my brief. So to basically start off with Section 1, New Page KU being considered as a write-in candidate, the Elections Commission denied the request for reopening the deadline filing to Faith Lopez on the basis that the filing deadline had been extended from March 21st to April 1st, and she had not established any intent to run until nearly 24 hours after the closure of the deadline, about 10 minutes shy of that closure. And even then, that deadline was extended from the 14th of March to the 21st in consideration of the fact that the initial deadline fell during the spring break period. To fairly reopen the deadline, we can't make an exception to one person. We have to reopen it to the basically entirety of the student body. And this would include redoing efforts such as emailing the entirety of the student body, hosting additional informational sessions, posting again on social media. I also attended a student senate meeting in which Faith should have been in attendance per her job titles, and also received information and had the possibility to question me on these items. Outside of that, the only reason we actually extended the initial deadline is because of the fact that under 10 candidates were registered at the point of the initial deadline's potential close, which would have led to the effective dissolution of the Student Senate with only 10 representatives. Currently, we have over 50 candidates listed on the ballot. When it comes to Abdullah's claim, he was not a potential candidate to my knowledge until April 7th. Faith contests the fact that I was the one who leaked the email. I gave this email to my advisors along with the fact that I disseminated the information to the Elections Commission to basically see exactly where we move from here and check precedents. I was notified prior to even reaching back out to Faith in the email that you can see in that first exhibit, that she had began campaigning and constructing a group me alongside Abdullah. I refrained from including that exhibit in this overall brief because of the fact that the people who reported it wanted to stay confidential because of their relations to the candidates. Outside of that, we tried to give them better access to the election considering the situation by offering them to allow students to write in iterations of the coalition or campaign name. You can basically see me give that delineation to Abdullah in the Exhibit B email, where I say that somebody can write in New Page KU or New Page. They do not have to write in Faith Lopez or Abdullah Al-Wahad. Outside of that, we also gave them access to the campaign closet and made it to where they had all applicable regulations. If I truly wanted to act with ill intent towards this coalition and basically abuse the Constitution to the fullest extent, I could have basically pointed to the fact that write-ins are not listed as they had said and barred them from the election in totality, along with access to a lot of these materials. But because of the fact that there had already been so many extensions and there would have to be additional efforts in order to see through another extension, what we did was basically proceeded with allowing them to be a write-in candidate and giving them access to the election in the way that we could. Outside of that, in the response to the email to Faith Lopez that you see in Exhibit A, we offer to let her come to the Elections Commission meeting and plead her case, but she never did respond to that email specifically. If you look at Exhibit C, you'll see that agenda for the Elections Commission meeting, in which the first item is basically redressing the issue of New Page KU's candidacy in the election, at which point the Elections Commission unanimously maintained to keep them as a write-in candidate on the ballot. This decision was basically made under the fact that the right to affiliation section that they cite stipulates that candidates must be registered and express consent to run under a certain coalition. The fact that they weren't registered is basically where the denial comes from. And then you also can refer to the other parts of the election code in which they delineate registration being specified with those deadlines. And basically the new constitution just does not have provisions for write-ins. It's what's led to these complications. And the existence of New Page in some capacity disputes the claim that there were limitations being imposed on them. And the lack of language itself, I think, just signals that we need to make additional amendments to the Constitution. It's a new document and there's things that we can do to improve it. Outside of that, we are willing to basically put in information on the fact that there's a write-in candidate whenever we email the student body tomorrow. And that will basically mean that like they would be listed on the ballot, their affiliated senator would be affiliated, or not listed on the ballot, but listed in the email as an option. And then the affiliated senator would basically be affiliated, and none of Ad Astra will currently be affiliated because I denied their right to affiliation as they missed the deadline. On to the actual duties of the election commission and election dates. The characterization that the election commission's main responsibility being advertising undermines the recognition of a lot of the other functions of the election commission. At the end of the day, our job is to facilitate those basically processes such as getting those ballots out, so on and so forth. Outside of that, a lot of the things that they point to as being negligence on our end is the fact is basically functionally due to the fact that the director of public relations was a vacant position for a long period of time. That is the only person who typically has administrative access to the website and ability to update and modify the website, meaning that I basically used the teams to the extent that I could. As I said earlier, I had a 2-hour session where I let people come and go and talk to me about any questions they had. I talked to the Senate, I emailed the full student body, and a post was made via the story on the Student Senate Instagram, as was notified to me by the PR director. And we had a discussion with the executive staff where we talked about the fact that there needed to be greater support for the Elections Commission and better communication between both of us. And that's basically where we kind of fell on this issue of communications and how to get things further out. Outside of that, we wanted to do more advertisement during Friday, but because of the nature of this case and it affecting the information that we would disseminate to the student body, we had to put a pause on information and basically further deliberations in regard to that email, just because it would be kind of hard to go for corrective action considering the fact that the student body isn't typically that engaged in student senate elections unless people are actively campaigning towards them. Outside of that, I'll go on to the conflict of interest. An additional area where Sadie and I will admit, have overlap is the fact that when I was on the student executive or student senate executive as the chief of staff and student body vice president, she did work under me during that time. And there is a personal relationship that exists, but it has not affected my judgment throughout the tenure of my throughout my tenure as the chair of the elections commission. I tried to even address this by appointing a co-chair so that NewPage could have somebody else to talk to express these grievances to. The only issue was that every single member of my elections commission is new to Senate. They're doing a great job and they're working with what they have, but they all expressed the fact that they were uncertain about taking on the position because of the fact that they didn't necessarily have that experience. Outside of that, I'd like to specifically address the allegations about the launch event for Ad Astra. It is standard procedure for the chair of the elections commission to attend these meetings, and chairs oftentimes do. I would have done the same thing for NewPage KU if I had been notified of a launch event. I actually was the one who told Abdullah of this event and that I was going to go ahead and attend the event in my capacity as the EC. That is why he was there in the first place. If you direct attention to Exhibit E, it is not unusual for the UDK to report on these. And if you further look at Exhibit F, Abdullah quotes me in his article that he wrote about that event as the Elections Commission chair. I ran into him when I went to check in with the Senate executive in the chief of staff's office, at which point I asked him if he would be at the event because the UDK typically covers it, especially under the position that he held at the time. To basically respond to those enumerated claims, there's no proof presented in the exhibits that makes connection to these claims. And even then, I have provided information that I made efforts to publicize these things. This decision was given by the Elections Commission unanimously and was supposed to be reflective of the changing campus atmosphere. Even then, I've said repeatedly that I am willing to add in an additional 24 hours to the period. It was not malicious intent. And 3, I believe that this has been addressed in section 1 of the response. If I truly were inclusion with the candidate, there are much more severe things I could have made an effort to do, none of which I even so much as brought up to an advisor. There was an opportunity at this for this meeting to have inclusion of NewPage KU and for them to plead their case. They did not attend, and that's what led the Elections Commission to reaching that consensus partially. And the main issue being contested, we offer remedy to in some capacity. Outside of that, other considerations for the Constitutional Court are included in the brief. A few things I wanted to answer to at the end of this is the fact that they said that there was a lack of access to the Constitution. The Constitution is listed under files on the general tab of the Microsoft Teams. Alejandro, Abdullah, and Faith are all listed as current members of the teams. If you check the teams, the Constitution delineates those campaign regulations that they said they were confused about. There's a specific area of the election code in which they discuss all the campaign regulations for things such as chalking. Basically, you just cannot campaign in those academic spaces such as classrooms. And Faith says I did not respond to her email. I did. If you look at Exhibit A, there's further responses. That's how Abdullah was responding to me and asking those additional questions was on that specific email chain. And outside of trying to contact the Elections Commission, besides myself, there is a specific channel on the teams for the Elections Commission, the teams which they are all able to access and members of in the status quo. And that is it.
Okay, I'm gonna open up to court questioning. If Brent or Nikki have any clarification questions that they would like to ask, now's the time.
Yeah, so I did have a couple questions. So I know that you had said that you were going to appoint a co-chair in order to like resolve the conflict of interest with this, and that like no one was comfortable with that. The other thing, like along the lines of that, do you guys have a plan for like updating your website? Abdullah had said that like the FAQ was out of a long time ago, and there was other things that he said that the email was wrong and other things like that. And if that were to be true, do you guys have a plan for updating that so it doesn't happen like in the future?
Yeah, so we'll basically make sure that it gets codified a little bit further and there's turnover incorporated. Part of the point of the appointment of the co-chair is that that person would take over in the fall for the administration of the freshman elections.
Okay.
And so there would basically be a plan delineated. A big reason the website wasn't updated is because the only person who really has access to updating that website was vacant and like
the PR person.
Yeah, was vacant until maybe a few weeks ago. I don't even think it's been a month. I'm not totally sure, but yeah.
Awesome. And then My second question is that how much notice was given to New Page KU when you notified them about the fact that they could present at your like meeting that you showed your agenda to for Exhibit C?
So I emailed them on Thursday, February 7th at about 6 p.m. And the actual meeting itself was held on Monday at 5:15 p.m. And I had not heard back in that time frame.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. And those are my questions for right now.
I don't have any questions.
Okay, I have a couple. So my first one was, were you ever contacted by the Ad Astra Coalition with specific questions?
Sorry, say that again.
Were you ever contacted by Ad Astra Coalition with specific questions throughout the spring semester?
I have been, for example, they recently emailed me asking why I denied their claim to affiliation. And I basically said, if you refer to the Constitution under section on affiliation, they missed the deadline. Yeah. And also, like, I've had Alessia ask me questions when I've been at Senate meetings, things like that.
Okay, and were any of the answers that you provided not readily available either through the elections PowerPoint that we previously referenced or the Student Senate Constitution?
I don't think so. Like, for example, the affiliation question was already available there. They haven't really asked a whole lot of questions of me in the first place, but most of them have just been clarifications on sections that I can think of.
Okay. When was the first instance of being contacted by New Page KU? And was it before either the third week of March deadline or the extended deadline?
So basically, the first time I was contacted by New Page KU, I did not present it in the exhibit, but I could send it to you after this, was Faith Lopez emailed me on, let me check my calendar. Let's see here. So she would have contacted me at about 4:49 p.m. on April 2nd, which was about 11 minutes from 24 hours since the extended deadline had passed. Prior to that, neither of the candidates had filed to be senators or expressed interest or intent to run, to my knowledge.
Okay, and then just piggybacking off of Nicole's question, I may have misheard, but did you say the offer to attend one of your meetings was February 7th or April 7th?
Oh, sorry, I meant April 7th. I don't know if I said
Okay.
February, that was a big mistake.
Okay.
Yeah, April
Perfect.
7th was the offer, and then the actual meeting occurred on April 19th. Or 19th, geez, 11th. Sorry, I'm kind of all over the place with this calendar. Yeah,
Okay.
April 7th was the email, April 11th was the meeting.
Okay, and the last deadline for candidate registration was April 1st?
Yes, and so that basically was extended from March 14th could have been that deadline in, but that was in spring break. So then March 21st became it. And then it got extended from March 21st to April 1st because of the turnout.
Okay, perfect. And then one last question. So I know in the brief submitted by the respondent, there was a point on the debate that was potentially going to take place tonight. What is the proposition of the Elections Commission? Is it likely to proceed, or what is the plan with that?
Currently, we aren't able to proceed basically just because this has kind of led to some lack of clarity and a pause on a lot of those communications that were inclusive of debate information. What we could potentially do is push the election back a week and host that debate during Monday night as we had originally wished to today, and then proceed with an election from Tuesday to Friday. It could potentially interfere with the turnover process between executive boards, joint Senate meetings, things of that nature. But I think that would be a better question for people who are in charge currently in the administration, like the president, VP, chief of staff, individuals such as that. But yeah, we're kind of willing to proceed with whatever will get us to at least an election. We'd like to have that debate so that students can hear from candidates prior to it. But as you know, there's kind of procedures that that directly contrasts with kind of the reality of our situation right now, just in terms of like actually having everything prepared, ready, how far out the debate was supposed to be versus where we're at now, so on and so forth.
Okay, thank you. That is the extent of my questioning. So that puts us into the witness questioning. So I believe the only witness is Wesley Cudney. And the first 3 minutes of questioning is allocated to the appellant, and the second 3 minutes of questioning is allocated to the respondent. There is no questioning permitted by the court judges. So if you're ready, I can begin your time.
I'm ready. Is everyone else?
I'm ready.
Okay, perfect. Your 3 minutes start now.
Okay, so regarding the phrase, the student coalition must send a list of all affiliated candidates to Student Elections Commission by 5 p.m. on Monday before the election week. Registered candidates that consent to being placed on the student coalition affiliation list shall have all the student coalition placed next to their names on the official ballot. So what was the reasoning behind the Rights and Affairs Council including that phrase in the Constitution?
So essentially, we wanted to make it very clear to the successor to the trial court, because in previous years, like coalitions were extra constitutionally just abolished, that coalitions would actually get special treatment this year. We wanted to explicitly make the rules to favor coalitions. So we gave them their own deadline to be separate from individual candidates. And before the campaign closet was decided upon, we were actually considering a $25 to $100 bonus in campaign finance limits for a coalition for every individual person in their coalition, which would be much larger than the $25 that were originally the limit for individuals before the campaign closet. So, and also the deadlines for coalitions and individual candidates historically used to be the same. So, but we explicitly changed it to allow for the last minute forming of coalitions to encourage more people to sign up, because in previous years, elections have been kind of lacking. People haven't really been running before, before the deadline passed for the candidates to file in spring break. There were only like a couple people. I was informative in a StudX meeting that even like signed up to be a candidate. So we definitely wanted to avoid that situation, and we wanted to pump up those numbers.
Okay, so what do you think is the duties, or are the duties of the Elections Commission? Do they have any power to interpret the Constitution, or do things outside of what the Constitution states?
The Constitution's interpretation is supposed to be only within the Constitutional Court. Because of what happened with the trial court last year, which I understand the people in the court, trial court doesn't exist anymore. The people in the Elections Commission are different from last year, but because of what happened with the trial court last year, we didn't really want to leave that up to a matter of interpretation, then have to deal with like a whole mess, like all coalitions being abolished like a couple weeks before the election. So we explicitly put it within the Constitutional Court for interpretation, just because we didn't want to recreate that disaster.
All right, so the next 3 minutes of questioning is allocated to the respondent. Addison, are you ready?
Let me just pull up a timer real quick and then I'll be good to go. Okay, so you basically said that there's a difference in the filing for affiliation versus deadlines for registration. What's the point of the deadline for registration if people can arbitrarily claim that they're part of a coalition and be added to the ballot so many weeks after the fact?
The point is to encourage them to form a coalition, actually, because we wanted coalitions. Coalitions weren't around last year. Turnout was in the gutter, couple hundred votes for each presidential ticket. It was a horrid disaster. We wanted to avoid that. So it's not really arbitrarily extending it. It's sort of giving people a second chance if they missed it as an individual to make them work together. Because one way or another, we wanted people to work together.
And in that section, doesn't it mention that affiliation is for registered candidates with consent to be affiliated?
Actually, no, it does not say for. It says that a registered candidate has to consent.
So then your document doesn't mention write-ins, no?
No, it does not. It's sort of just a thing that kind of always happens in an election. It's not. We didn't want to explicitly lay out everything that the the Elections Commission would have to do.
And you didn't also build in additional incentives for coalitions?
We did. Those incentives were the election deadline.
And so why is it that you should be the arbiter on how exactly the Constitution is interpreted when we have a whole judicial branch to functionally interpret that Constitution and do those things?
Well, I wrote the section, so that's kind of the limit to giving my thinking when I wrote it.
Okay, and what's the point of the judicial branch and the Elections Commission if they have no check on the interpretation of the Constitution as typically exists in a government structure with branches not dissimilar to our own?
Well, they could just ignore me if they wanted to. Like, while I can give my words on how exactly I was thinking when I wrote it, what I wanted it to do in my conversations with Alicia and Umberto when we were passing it, ultimately in the end, they don't even have to listen to me, just like how the current American Supreme Court doesn't have to listen to the debates of the founding fathers during the Constitutional Convention when interpreting any individual amendment. So it's pretty much up to whatever weight they give my word.
So what's the point of the existence of the Elections Commission if they don't have that ability to interpret and other executive roles can functionally fill the positions that you have outlined?
Well, they're not executive roles. That would be judicial roles in the Constitutional Court. The Elections Commission can essentially fine people if they think there is a violation, but then the Constitutional Court would then hear that appeal, for example. So let's say a coalition bought, let's do a repeat of history, Chipotle for everyone in the coalition, right? And they wanted to have that as a campaign finance expense, but there's no campaign finance expenses anymore because it's on the campaign closet. Well, then the Elections Commission could fine them or potentially even disqualify them and say, hey, you can't do that. They're kind of like the police officer, arresting someone, while the court is the judge that hears it during the hearing on whether or not they should get bail or should be dismissed.
Thank you for your testimony. We will be moving into the rebuttal section. The first 5-minute rebuttal will be allocated to the appellant. Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Your time starts now.
I would first, and then Abdullah can go from there. I would first like to say that I was unable to receive the email. I checked my spam, I checked my junk, I checked everything. On the 7th, I was only forwarded it by our boss, Sarah Bowman, on the 11th. And so that is why I did not attend. Once again, I had 5 people check all of my folders. It could have been a mishap with the email itself, but I did not receive it.
Okay, so Edison Henson wrote in the brief, we also tried to help them have better access to the election, considering the situation by offering to allow students to write in iterations of a coalition campaign name. Let me see. So Addison Henson claimed that she attended the Ad Astra Coalition launching event because it was part of her responsibilities as Elections Commission's chair. However, contrary to the Elections Commission's claims, there are no documents indicating that it's part of the Elections Commission's chair to attend those events of other candidates. That was done completely voluntarily by Addison Henson and not as a part of her role. And then if New Page, Addison Henson read the brief, if New Page considered a registered coalition after the hearings today, then they may be found in conflict with the elections code. This is because they began campaigning before they were notified of their eligibility to run in the student senate campaigns, end of quote. actually, there is no elections code on the website. There's an elections guide. And the elections guide only contains screenshots from the actual constitution. So there is no separate document for that. And the Constitution does not impose any limitations on when you can begin to campaign. I believe that the only information about limitations on when you should begin to campaign is in the FAQ, which has not been updated and which is considered misinformation. Now to refute Addison Henson's claim that she used the Microsoft Teams as much as she could, there is not a single file on the Microsoft Teams Elections Commission channel other than the contact information file sent by Humberto Salinas Gomez, the Chief of Staff, which was uploaded upon my own personal request just 4 days ago. Therefore, the Elections Commission did not perform its duties to publicize information even within the Microsoft Teams, which the Elections Commission has full control over. Also, the Elections Commission wrote in the brief, the existence of New Page in some capacity disputes the claim that there are limitations being imposed on them. Well, actually, the Elections Commission did send an email saying that although there is a right to affiliate, since that it's a write-in campaign, it has different regulations than other coalitions. Which is kind of hypocritical compared to what the Elections Commission wrote in the agenda, which is that all coalitions regulations would be followed with the write-in campaign of New Page KU. And then they send an email saying that since it's a write-in campaign, the regulations might be different. So there is a conflict between the two things that the Elections Commission said in the email and on the agenda that was presented in the exhibit. So, and thank you so much. That's all I have to say.
Okay, you have about a minute left. Are you wanting to use it or just end your rebuttal?
I rest my case.
Perfect. And then moving on to the final rebuttal, this is by the respondent. Addison, are you ready?
Yep. Okay. So to start off with Faith's claim that she did not receive the email. If she did, I genuinely tried to get it to her. Robbie Maples, who is included on that email, did receive the email, but she did not notify me that she did not receive that email. I did not actually receive any kind of notification until an advisor notified me later that she claimed she did not see the email, and then they found it and forwarded it to her again. All communications that initially began between me and Abdullah, if you look at Exhibit B, are derived from the email chain that initial response email comes from. Even then, it has, outside of that, I'll just go on to addressing the other things that Abdullah said in his portion of the rebuttal. It has never been specifically written that the elections commissioner has to go to those meetings. It's just a typical practice. It's the capacity I was there in. It's what he understood me to be there in. I actually told the chief of staff prior to that, who has basically managerial control and regulation over the whole Senate, that that's the reason I was still in the union and I would continue to be in the union, is because I was going to basically make sure that there was no illegal campaigning, anything like that was happening at the meeting. I have not attended a single one since, even so much as looked at joining a group me or followed them on social media, anything like that. But it's a pretty regular thing. I would have honestly gone to the New Page KU one if they had given me any kind of notice or it had been publicly posted for me to find. Outside of that, he says that the elections code is not accessible. It is in the Constitution. I believe it's Article 6 of the Constitution, once again, that he, Faith, and Alejandro, all members of that coalition, have access to. It is all listed in there. That's where all of the regulations sections are delineated from. Outside of that, with the website issue, it's being integrated into a new platform. There's not a lot of basically work to push forward updating a bunch of aspects of it because it's being integrated onto that new platform. Even then, the only person who has access to change the website was vacant from their position. I have never had access to change the website this year. The closest I had gotten to that is when I was chief of staff in a supervisor position during my tenure on executive in previous years. Outside of that, he claims that we did not notify people. I attended a Senate meeting on a Wednesday. I held a 2-hour session, and that access to the session and information on it was included in an email that was sent to the entirety of the student body. And there was also a post made on the Student Senate social media, as was communicated to me. I was actually a bit upset because I couldn't find a specific standalone post that would stay on the social media about those deadlines. And it turned out it was just a story post, which is why I could not find that information, but it was posted on there. Even then, if you look at Exhibit B, when he explains this differentiation in regulations and his confusion on it, in subpoint 4 of my response to him, I tell him that all coalition regulations do apply to him. If I really wanted to abuse the Constitution, there's several ways that you can go about it that I did not so much as even attempt to basically use against New Page KU, because I do want them to have recourse to this election. It's just that we can't let people continue to arbitrarily enter the race after the deadline has passed. We either have to extend it for everybody or no one. Even then, we give them full access to all of the different things that coalitions get access to. The reason that they don't get the access to be included on the ballot as per that section that they reference in affiliation, which is from the election code that he says he can't find, is that it basically says that the stipulations for the actual affiliation are registration and consent. That means that Abdullah would have to be registered and have consent from Faith to be the president, and Faith would have to be registered and have consent from Abdullah to be the vice president in order to be affiliated on that ballot and then to be listed. And then Alejandro would also have to consent to being included under that basically branch at the top of the ticket, which he will be included in and listed as affiliated. He will actually, in fact, be the only affiliated candidate on that ballot. We can make those accommodations, like I said, to include information about the fact that there is a write-in campaign. But realistically, students don't vote unless you campaign to them. Turnout basically proves that students don't just opt into the ballot, open it up, and vote for whoever. You have to usually actually engage them in order to get them to vote. If you look at the differences in turnout across the years, and especially how that tanked with COVID and engagement on campus. But that is all I have.
Okay, perfect. That wraps up our hearing, and the other 2 judges and I and our advisor will now move into closed considerations. This will not be open to the public, nor will it be open to the parties to listen, and we should issue a decision within 24 hours as per the Constitution. Thank you all for attending and letting this go along smoothly.
Thank you so much. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And then I mentioned it earlier, but do you want that email that Faith initially sent me? I'm not sure I included it in that evidence brief, or I know it's also past the deadline. So then like for submission and the hearings happen. So
Yeah, it's probably better to just not include it. I don't think it's a point of contention for anybody as far as I could tell. So we'll
Okay.
just decide off of what we have so far.
awesome. Thank you again.
Thank you. Okay, I want to make sure that we're not live streaming all considerations to the YouTube before we jump into this. I think I just have to hit stop recording maybe. Still shows the live.
Tara, who has Senate support?
Oh, Ahmad Hussein, I believe.
Is it Hamad?
Yeah.
Okay. Let me try to maybe find him on Teams. I'm on mute. I wonder what happens if you just kick them off. But will that,
I can try.
actually, before we do that, you're in here as a co-host.
I think we are still streaming, just a
Yeah,
flag them.
I can see the
went
little
to the
live
YouTube.
tab.
Yeah.
I think I might have a cell phone number for Hamad. Somewhere in here. Okay, I've just texted Hamad.
Yeah, I believe it's still up. So. Otherwise, worst comes to worst, I can start a new separate Zoom and invite just the 4 of us.
Yeah. I will say I do have to be somewhere in like 15 to 20 minutes. I wasn't sure if that was going to be a problem. I just know you said in the original email it was going to be like 45 minutes of the meeting. I had just like kind of budgeted 30 minutes after that, but I wasn't sure.
Yeah, since we're not getting a response from Hamad, I'm going to go ahead and create a separate Zoom to invite us to, just because I don't want to accidentally stream
Yeah,
deliberations to the entire school. So
You're fine.
I'm going to, I think, end this if I can. Or I can leave. Here, I'll try just kicking him.
We can all
Nope,
just
can't do that
leave.
either. Yeah, we'll probably just have to leave and I'll invite you to all to a new one.
Okay.
See you guys
Thanks.
soon.
So yeah.